Most people think leadership is about what you say, but real leadership shows up in patterns, in decisions, in what you allow, and what you avoid. And the truth is, people don't disengage randomly. They respond to the environment around them. Today, we're talking about what's really shaping leadership and what it takes to change it. Welcome to the Delay the Binge Podcast. I'm Pam Dwyer, and today I am sitting down with Tanu Tiwari, a leadership strategist, author, and founder of the Conscious Leader Company, who brings over 18 years of experience working with leaders across global organizations, from Fortune 500 companies to high-growth startups. Her work focuses on what's happening beneath the surface of team performance, how decision-making, ownership, and everyday leadership patterns shape whether people truly engage or quietly disengage. Through her upcoming book, Disengaged, she challenges the idea that engagement is a people problem and instead shows how it's created by the environments leaders build. Tanu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pam. That was some introduction.
I thought you were very worthy of such an introduction. So can we start out today by sharing with the listeners what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, so I am, like you said, writing this book called Disengaged, and it's coming out in fall. The full title is Disengaged, Turning Passive Teams into Proactive Microcultures. And it brings together interviews with a lot of industry leaders across different big and small company sizes, and also people who are being led. So not just leaders' perspective, but employee perspective on leadership. And this book is really about how leaders can look at their role as architects of microcultures, not just conduits. And when we talk about culture, we think at a very organization level, the values, what you see on the decks, and how senior leadership talk about culture. But what I'm exploring through this book is that leader, no matter how big or small the organization is, and no matter how many people you're managing, whether it's one person or it's 100 people, if you are mobilizing people, if you're managing people, you have agency, you have the power to shape how people show up and what they bring to the table, and also how they don't show up and what they don't contribute. And oftentimes, whenever, you see disengagement or people not doing so well, the first thing we blame is, oh, this person's underperforming, or there's something wrong with the person. We hardly ever look at the environment we are creating, because we are all results of our environment.
I so love that, because I've been a leader in a corporate, world before, and I've also been the Indian, not the chief. And I learned a lot when I was in my leadership role. But the one thing I realized was that I have to really work on myself first and not let my emotions get away from me, and just lead with what I know. So self-leadership actually looks like what in real life? I mean, where do you see leaders disconnect from themselves?
That's a great question. And you said it, self-leadership. And you don't have to be a leader for self-leadership, right? Every single one of us, we lead ourselves. We lead ourselves to great things, or we lead ourselves to destruction also.
Yeah.
And when it comes to leaders, I think it's a lot to do with the demands on leaders. It's a lot to do with the autopilot that we get used to, right? We get used to our cadences, our routines, the expectations, the pressures that are coming from the organization. And especially with middle management, they're in a very peculiar position, because there's pressure from above, from senior leaders, from the business, from the stakeholders, and then there's also expectations from the team below them. that they have to manage. And self-leadership plays a very, very important role there, because if you are not intentional, you're not conscious about how you are conducting yourself as a leader,
Mm.
you are pretty much just getting stretched in two different directions, and constantly delivering to or giving into the demands of whatever is expected of you in the moment. And surely enough, always you'll see that the demands from above take precedence over whatever the team is expecting of you.
Mhm.
And somewhere there are blind spots for the leaders where they don't even see or understand how they're being perceived by the leader, by their teams. So if you're not pausing, if you're not taking that pause to understand how you're showing up, how you're being perceived, and what impact that has on people. Because at the end of the day, you have to mobilize your people. You have to make sure that they're achieving their targets or they're hitting their goals. And while doing that, they are thriving in the environment you're creating. So whether or not you accept it, you agree to it, and you're not intentional, you are creating microcultures around you.
I love that a lot because a lot of times, I mean, do you see patterns in high performing leaders that most people don't recognize?
Absolutely. I mean, high performing leaders definitely hold themselves to high standards, and they hold people around them to high standards. Now, there are high performing leaders that, um, what I call are, there's two things that I name in my book. Pardon my French there a little bit. So there's the shit umbrella leaders or the shit funnel leaders.
Mhm.
And you can find this in both like high performing and low performing leaders. But what shit umbrella leaders do is whatever pressure is coming from above, whatever they're absorbing from other parts of the business that has an impact on their team, they triage it first. They act as an umbrella. They don't just let everything slide onto their teams, and they make sure that things are getting translated the right way for the teams, because there's a lot that they could bring from all the parts of the business, especially from above. And shit funnel leaders, what they do is they absorb all that pressure, they absorb that energy, and push it right through to their teams. And the teams that are under these kind of leaders, they're always, very high cortisol in high stress environments. And they're not just managing the work that is being assigned to them or is coming to them, but they're also managing their manager a lot, like anticipating how they're going to react, how to say something to them. And that's the difference between, do you want to be a shit umbrella leader or do you want to be a shit funnel?
A lot of times I notice personally that personal issues can really get in the way of work, of you doing your job properly or well. And a lot of times it's just what's happening outside of the job place. But what are signs a culture is broken? Even when everything looks good on the outside, because that's what I call quiet depletion. Quiet depletion is when you look perfect on the outside, but on the inside, you are exhausted. You're either overworked or just emotionally distraught, so you're unable to work in the manner that your leader is wanting you to, or they're putting too much on you. Can you tell us what some signs are?
Yes, absolutely. So, something that I talk about in my book is the 6 stages of disengagement. So, you must have heard the 5 or 6 stages of grief, but
Yes.
disengagement works in a very similar fashion. And there is this, honeymoon phase that we are in when we join a company. Everything's going great. We love the culture. We love the people, and something changes, something shifts. Yes, there is the aspect of things going not so well in your personal life. But what I'm focusing on in this book is not those situations where leaders are creating those environments where people are disengaging because of their behaviors and their patterns. And when you say, personal life, I mean, this is the perfect time to discuss this, because look at everything that's going on in the macro world around us, right? It's
Right.
not easy to be in any kind of corporate job right now. We have all these, political things that are going on. Um, Life is not easy. Things are expensive. Inflation is high. And there's, layoffs happening for this cycles and cycles of layoffs for like, what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
And we've been in this cycle of the great resignation, and now everything's shifted towards employer, and employee is so dispensable. It puts a lot of pressure on people and how they, bring themselves to work. And in these environments, it's even more important for leadership to really, bring out the human side of them,
Yes.
because we're all humans at the end of the day. And we come to work, like we spend 1/3 of our lives at workplace, if not more. And for some people, it ends up becoming 100% of their identity. So
Yeah.
when you introduce yourself to someone, what do you say? You say your name and you say, where you work or what your title is, what kind of work you do. That's your identity. That's
Yeah.
everything to you. And then when things are not going well in this area of your life, which is giving you your bread and butter, and you're spending so much of your time there, and oftentimes you also get a lot of validation with the appreciation you get from workplace, from how your leaders, your team talks to you. So the impact on a human being of being in a work environment in today's world especially is profound. And what we don't realize is we're not robots. Yeah, sure, AI is taking over, but we've
Mhm.
not reached that point where we can all function like non-feeling human beings. That will never happen. And when leaders look at a certain problem and bring the human side of it, like why did something go wrong, instead of just looking at the person behind a mistake or an issue that came about,
Yes.
what made the mistake happen. Because at the end of the day, first thing you have to trust is this person was hired to be in this position for a reason. And if mistakes are happening, before going and pointing your finger at the person, how about you look at the process? How about you look at the environment around that person? And sometimes leaders also have to just take a step back and um, connect with that person, and
Yeah.
find out that is it really work related, or is something going on in your personal life that could be getting in the way. And you messing up, or missing things or making mistakes. I understand that this is happening right now, but like, why and how can I help you to get in a better place? Making
Right.
yourself available, making sure that you are being an enabler for
Mm.
that person, for that team. So the whole idea of servant leadership, right? That a leader is there for their people. At the end of the day, you have to enable them, and then make sure that they have everything in place, break down the barriers, enable them, give them what they need to function well, and to bring their best selves. And you bring out the best in them that way. So there's a lot of nuance that goes behind it, right? From, the trust, and self leadership, identifying what your own shortcomings are as a leader, making sure you're hiring the right people. You're not, bringing in a fish and asking it to climb a tree and then blaming the fish for not being able to do that effectively.
Oh, that's pretty good. A fish climbing a tree. I've not heard that one. But a lot of times, leaders that I have had in the past, they really had trouble with being proactive, and they were reactive to a lot. They were just troubleshooting all the time. But to be proactive is a whole different story. And a lot of times, leaders unintentionally create disengagement from fear of failure. Or, I mean, why do you think they do that?
Hmm. Yeah. So again, a leader is also human, and there's a lot that goes into the lens with which you look at the world, and the energy that you come to work with every day. So I am also a certified leadership coach, and one of the areas that I coach in is energy leadership coaching. So this is something that was created by Bruce D. Schneider. It's like the 7 levels of energy
Mm.
that we talk about, and I'm just quickly going to describe these 7 levels. So there's like
Yes.
catabolic and anabolic energy that we're all made up of. So catabolic, think about your digestion, right? You eat food and there's acid that's created that breaks down the food. And then there's anabolic energy, which is the building up force. You breathe, there's oxygen supplied to different parts of your body. Now, both types of energies are very important for your body, right? And within these anabolic and catabolic energy, there's like 7 levels. So level 1 would be the energy of apathy, not being able to move to action, a lot of self-judgment. Sometimes people are stuck in past and, replaying things from the past and what didn't work. And then level 2 energy is the energy of frustration, anger. A lot of founders come from that place. So it doesn't have to be like an explicit anger kind of energy where people are yelling at everyone, although that also happens a lot in corporate. But sometimes that anger that I want to make it, I want to defeat my competitor and do better. Then there's this level 3 energy, which is more of trying to understand and make do with whatever the situation is and just move on from there. It starts getting anabolic from level 3, and level 4 is more of a service energy. Even you take care of yourself, there's energy of care and take care of others. That's more level 4. Level 5 is more of a win-win energy where you're looking to have win-win for both the parties involved, or any situation. You want to win, you want to make sure the other person or whatever the situation is, that is also getting a win out of it. And then level 6 is more of an energy of flow. And level 7 energy is where you don't see yourself separate from the world around you. And that's like the highest level of energy. So that's like your 7 levels of consciousness. And in leadership position, if you are a person that defaults to level 2 energy, for example, whenever something goes wrong or there's a stressor in your environment, then you see a leader that's typically yelling, and getting upset and angry and saying things that they shouldn't be saying in front of the team. That builds a lot of fear in the team. And um, that's where I said that, you start managing your manager's emotions, and you work about that additional thing on your plate now, apart from everything that's, work related that you have to manage. And if the leader comes from a place of, say, level 1 energy, that's their default. They don't move to action. They get, really paralyzed by whatever's going on, and they depend on their team. A lot of weak leaders you'll find, are stuck in level 1 energy, and they really depend on people on their team to really do something about whatever is going on. So when you ask about the fear that comes up, or people are operating from a place of fear, it's coming from whatever energy your leader is operating from, and based on the energy that they default to or they operate from, they create those kinds of environments. Those are the rhythms you'll see in the team. So a lot of rush requests, for example, a lot of anger, and people just blaming each other every time something goes wrong. Who did this? Why did this happen? How could you do this? Those kind of rhetoric. And when the culture is, about level 2 energy, where people are just constantly blaming each other, angry with each other, what do you get? You get fear. People don't want to be in that situation. And the thing about that is also that when something like that happens at work versus when something like that happens at home, it just hits you very different. It's
Yes.
a direct attack on your identity. It's not just about a situational thing that you don't take, personally. And it's something that I also, recently was speaking to someone, and there was this person who had a situation with their leader who did not trust them, and constantly, blamed them for things going wrong, and then ended up complaining about them to HR rather than working with them. And then at the end of the day, that person got put under a PIP, performance improvement plan, and that person was devastated because, they were like, I cannot believe this. I've been an award winner, I've been an achiever throughout my life. How can I be on a PIP? And it took a lot of coaching and a lot of conversations for the person to even start to shift a little bit of responsibility or accountability to this other person that was leading them. So the impact that it has whenever something like this happens at work, it's just very, very personal. And that's the irony, because you think it's all professional environment, people are going to take everything professionally, but no, it's all very, very personal.
Yes, it is. And the brain loves patterns. And I'm just curious. Sometimes awareness is everything, but leaders don't realize that they have a pattern that needs to be changed or just analyzed. Because anger, let's use that, or where they're yelling at their team constantly. Anger is just hurt feelings, really. Do you think leaders can learn how to evaluate their own patterns so that they can have better performance from their team?
Yeah, absolutely. The book that I'm writing should definitely help you evaluate every single, because there's also a section on how leaders create disengagement unintentionally. So
Yes.
it's talking about habits of well-intentioned mismanagement. So they have good intentions, but they're mismanaging. So they're expecting one thing from their behavior, but a completely different thing starts happening. And I'll give you an example. If there's a leader that um, favors a certain person on the team and is praising them, always pushing them, they're thinking that this person's performing really well, so I'm giving them praise, I'm pushing them, in front of other people, I'm advocating for them, so I'm doing well for that person. But they might not be aware of how it's being perceived by the rest of the team and how they think of their relationship to this leader. They start seeing it as favoritism, and that the leader's being unfair, whereas the intention behind pushing that person is, oh, you're performing well, let me advocate for you, let me praise you, let me keep talking about you, I'm so impressed by you. So there are a lot of such things that go on in a day to day, and leaders are often unaware. And there is a way. First of all, you need to be tuned in to your own energy. You need to have that willingness in you to grow and to be better. If there's one thing as being, not aware, and then there's another thing as being aware but not wanting to do anything about it. And that is also the case if you are someone that really wants to be a better leader. I've seen so many leaders that are, talking about TED Talks they watch and books, and then, they share anecdotes from different, books and leadership. And in such leaders, cultures, microcultures, you'll see rhythms and routines that are, for example, they'll have team meetings where they don't start with status updates. They start with connecting with the humans in the room. They have, I don't know, like Friday connects or TGIF Friday kind of, meetings where people just talk about the fun stuff they're going to do on the weekend and how their
Yeah.
vacation was. They make sure they're making time for fun as well as work, for the real connection. And especially now that, everyone's remote, there's so many people that are working in different time zones. These kind of leaders make an effort to bring people together, to have connectivity events. And they care just a little bit more, even while the work is going on. You'll see, thoughtful thoughtful things coming from them. For example, if there's like a project going on, they're not just going to check on the project and how it's pacing and stuff like that. Do you need anything from me? The questions you get from these leaders are very different. The tone they speak to you in is very different, and the thoughtfulness behind everything. And that is, again, they say that people don't remember what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel. So the warm and fuzzy that you feel under this leadership is very different. And I'm not saying it's always coming from, like a loving tone. And I have personally also worked with leaders that are really hard ass and they're very much of a taskmaster.
Yes.
But they have such high value systems when it comes to making sure there's justice being done, with the workflow, with the workload, with the decision rights, with the trust, with the ownership, with the accountability, that people don't even look for all the lovey-dovey sweet conversation. And they're still very, very happy and thriving under those leaders.
I think that a great leader actually communicates with his team, even if he's wrong, even if he doesn't know something, because that's the hard part is when leaders act like they know everything when in reality they're not. If they're not in the trenches, so to speak, with the team, they sometimes don't know what's going on, but they should be able to say, okay, I'm not up to speed. Can someone do that for me? Can someone fill me in? But a lot of leaders, they are more controlling than they are leading. How do you know when that's happening? What do you see as a result?
Yeah, I love that you bring it up, because it is something that I have coached so many people on. And you would often see that happening because there's this not very clear understanding of how to be an authentic leader. Everyone hears this term authenticity, be authentic. But what if I'm scared of who I am, and my authentic self?
Hmm.
A lot of performative stuff going on with leadership, and what they don't realize is that your people smell the bullshit. They see the bullshit that you're putting in front of them. They know when you're being real and when you're not. So if you're passing it off as, oh, I know it all, and then you're showing them with your actions that you did not know something, they don't focus on what you said. It's like, children, right? With kids, we
Yeah.
say they learn more from watching you than from listening to you. You could give them sermons and instructions all day, but if you're not leading by example, and if you're doing something completely opposite to what you're saying, that's what they're going to watch and learn. And that's what they're going to trust that you're all about, not what you're saying and what your values deck is saying.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's very important to own up
Mhm.
and like your topic, becoming the
Yes.
podcast. So when I think of becoming, it's really about meeting yourself honestly and then shedding parts of you that don't serve you anymore and that were created by conditioning. So leadership, more than anything else, needs to be in this constant process of becoming better for yourself, becoming better for the people that follow you and depend on you.
I love that. That's beautiful. And our focus on becoming, it means so many different things to people. It's incredible when I ask them, what does becoming look like for you? I would ask you, what does it look like for a leader in real life, but not theory, but in reality? What does that look like for a leader? Are they just performing to get the job done? Or are they being true to themselves? Or do they even know who they are?
Oftentimes they don't know who they are, and I do this work with them where we do value finding with leaders.
Okay.
So if you think about it, when we are growing up, we get these labels, right? You're creative, you're analytical, you're so smart, you're this, you're that. And then our parents, our teachers, whoever's around in our surrounding that's an authority figure, we allow them to give us those labels. And then in our grown up life, at workplace, as soon as we, become professionals, we start accepting labels from these unknown people that are not technically related to us or hold any importance in our life for a long term, just like your parents and teachers did in an impressionable age. And those labels end up sticking with you, and especially
Mhm.
leadership, like um you're a taskmaster, or you love being. So it happened to me, at one of my previous roles. I was considered to be very no nonsense, hard ass kind of leader, and I wore that as a badge of honor because I was known as someone who could get shit done, and like a bulldozer of a leader. So like had a lot of different labels. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when I am coaching the leaders, trying to understand the who behind the person, right? It's very important for them to understand what's in their who bag. And for that, they have to understand what labels are they carrying. What
Hmm.
do they think they're all about? And it's very fascinating that they start with pride in the labels they've been given. And as you get into how that served you so far, how is that serving you now? And then when you talk about all the problems that they're facing, and then, you know, juxtapose that against these labels they've been carrying, it's very, very fascinating that their actions are coming from a place of those labels because they're being expected to be a hard ass leader, or they're being expected to be a taskmaster, so they end up being that taskmaster. They're expected to be a micromanager, so they end up. It's really about our conditioning and the labels we carry. So then the next thing we do is we do a value exercise. We get intentional about, okay, you were known as this all this time. What do you want to be known as today? If you were to choose your own labels, not labels that other people gave you that have been serving you or not serving you so far. If you had to choose your own labels, what would you choose? And it's amazing to see that they end up choosing some things like that are completely out of the blue. Like I don't even expect those words that they come up with. And then we look at, what are the values that go with those words, that labels that you're talking about, and why that's important to you. Now that you've chosen your labels, now that you know the values, how does it show up in action every day in you working as a leader? So then they define the action that they want to take to be a better leader, to be more aligned leader with the value system that they believe in, not something that was given to them by the company. Because that's what happens. Companies change, and values change, and we change along with that. And one example I would give you of that is think about what happened when the new administration took over. DEI was so big and huge. Like we had chief diversity officers in every company, and there were rules around diversity and inclusion. And then one by one, uh, every company out there that's big and important, they have let go of their DEI budgets. They've let go of their DEI people, and they're not even allowed to talk about DEI. And if you think about it, the very people that were actively creating all these events around DEI, that were hiring, that were talking, like you listen to them talk, it was so inspiring. They are the very people who are creating comms around why we will not talk about DEI now. So what happened? Did you really stop believing in it? Or are you just agreeing with whatever's happening in the company or in the environment around you? So
Well,
understanding that that agency that you have, it's so important within your microenvironment. You obviously cannot do too much about what the administration is doing or where the world is going in general, but just like zoom into your own orbit, your own circle of influence. What can you do there? Are you showing up as your best self? Are you showing up with the value systems you believe in as a leader?
Yeah, that's where that fear shows itself again, and also just being vulnerable. A lot of leaders have trouble with that, and so if they're not vulnerable, they're not gonna connect with their team. Do you agree with that? I love the labels. I love how you describe that, because as a leader, if you were to ask me to label myself and I knew what my label was with my team, I would be worried about getting a different label, because maybe it would just change the whole dynamics of the team. Do you ever hear that from them in that exercise?
Yes. So there have been a couple of times where we have gone and surveyed their teams, not to get exact labels, but to get an idea of what they think about the leader and their leadership style. So it's easy for the leader to also understand that kind of feedback. And again, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself in that position where you're asking your team to rate you, because most companies don't have effective bottoms up feedback.
Mhm.
There's a lot of feedback, mechanisms in place. You have performance reviews and everything, but I have interviewed a lot of leaders and a lot of people. And when I ask them, do you have an effective feedback mechanism that's bottoms up where you can give feedback to your leaders and something happens about that feedback? Every single person I've interviewed have said no. And the only places where this bottoms up feedback has worked is where the leader himself or herself has taken that ownership that I want feedback, and they have inserted those in their day-to-day sort of cadences, like in their monthly one-on-ones, in their quarterly all-hands meeting, where people can just give feedback, or even like around a certain project.
Mhm.
It's over. How do you think, what else could I have done better? So um, when it comes to really being able to give feedback to your leader, or being able to say what they're doing or not doing well, there's a huge fear of retaliation,
Yes.
and people worrying about whether this will go against whatever they're trying to do and somehow bite them in the backside. So the thing that you asked me about, whether I have seen this, like in the work that I'm doing with the leaders, um, they have taken the feedback from their teams, and then come back and been surprised that the kind of perception that was created. And it's very easy to get into a rabbit hole. That has also happened, where
Mm.
there's been like a couple of coaching sessions where we're just exploring, I don't believe they said that. I don't believe they didn't mark me for this one. Why? Maybe because of that project, maybe because of that incident. So it does become a rabbit hole in the end. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's very hard to, like I said, you need a lot of courage to put yourself in that position where you take feedback as a leader and then also do something with it. Feedback means nothing if there's no like closing the circle, right? You
Right.
cannot implement all feedback for sure. But when you get the feedback, at least tell them, hey, I heard you. These are the things we can do about it. These are the things we still cannot change, but we heard you.
I have to tell you, I'm just so impressed, because all this research and you sharing it in your book is all about curiosity. Curiosity has to happen in order to do research, but curiosity creates clarity, and clarity is probably much needed in a lot of leader team situations.
Yeah,
Connection and clarity, all the C's.
this is very true. Yeah.
Before we close, can you share with everybody how we can follow your work and see what's going on and stay up to speed with what's going on in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I am very active on TikTok and Instagram. You can find me with the handle Coach Tanu Tiwari. And also, I have a LinkedIn newsletter called Invisible Lessons. And there also, my name's Tanu Tiwari, and you can find me on LinkedIn and subscribe to the newsletter, because I give some really hard, invisible sort of, facts and ideas in that newsletter that I've been getting great responses for. Like, people are coming and telling me, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And I've been feeling this way. And even with the 6 stages of disengagement, like identifying how, you see who's getting disengaged, what stage they're in, all of that stuff that I'm researching in my book, exploring in my book. And I'm going to be sharing, because my book is coming end of this year, around
good.
late fall. So if you want to get a sneak peek of all the great stuff that I have explored in my book, the way to do that is subscribing to the newsletter.
Yes, and it is a great newsletter. And your videos, they're very powerful. And people are told all the time about what we're feeling, about emotions, about mindset, the pause, the small steps, all the things. Everybody is talking about that. But what I like about your work is you're not only talking about the issues, but you offer solutions. You offer what can be done about it, right? Because a lot of times understanding what's happening, but actually doing something with it is another story altogether. You agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's why even in my book, I haven't left you high and dry with just discussing the problem of disengagement. I actually have introduced a proactive framework. That's what I call it, proactive, which will help leaders really implement some of the things based on whatever they learn throughout the book as the problem, and implement based on their own use case, things that are going wrong. So, for example, if things keep getting escalated to you over and over again, where is the problem coming from? And this framework is backed into the Stanford's framework of PARC, which is people, architecture, routines, and culture. So research based, very scientific, and you'll be able to use those different areas based on whatever is going on in your life as a leader and implement some of the changes right away.
I love that so much. So if that's happening, do this. Very simple.
Very simple. We don't have to overcomplicate. We don't have that kind of attention span anymore.
I know it is hard. We're just spread thin. What stands out in this conversation, everybody, is that leadership isn't about control. It's about awareness, because the patterns you don't notice are the ones shaping everything around you. And change doesn't happen in big, giant moments. It happens in small decisions.
Yes.
The moment you pause, the moment you choose differently, the moment you lead on purpose, and one decision at a time. How do you feel about that?
Beautifully put.
I want to make sure I have the right understanding.
Yes. Yeah, you summarized it really well. And yes,
Wonderful.
remember that it's all about the microcultures that you build, and you have control over that. So stop fussing about things you cannot control and focus on the microcultures you create, and you'll see magic happen with your teams.
Yes. Thank you for caring so much. I mean, how wonderful that we have you out there just trying to figure out how to instill a little bit of happiness in the workplace.
Thank you so much.
We need it. Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you all next week.